One of the most flexible things about lofting is the fact that you can actually loft different shapes at different levels of the path. And it's absolutely amazing how powerful the lofting tool becomes when you do just that. Let me show you how it works. Let's open up a file, Chapter 7, and in this instance let's choose Loft Multiple Shapes Start. Now let's get a visual on what we're talking about here. The path is going to be this straight green line. We have two shapes, the circle and the rectangle. Now the only reason I've spread these apart is so you can get a better visual of what this is going to end up looking like. We're going to end up trying to put the circle on one end of the green path line and the rectangle at the other. Here's the technique to do so. Select the path. Let's now go under Standard Primitives to the Loft command and now choose Get Shape. If we click on the circle first, this is exactly what we expected to see. So the circle basically is just traveling directly down to the other end of the path. Now, here is how we can actually move our position on the path. Let's go to the Modify column. Now you have a tab here called Path Parameters. Notice the 0 next to path. This is the percentage that we are down the path. Right now we're at the beginning of the path. If I change this value, it's like I'm putting on my walking shoes and walking straight up that line to another location on the path. You can probably most easily see this if we turn this into wireframe. Let's right-click on Perspective and change to wireframe. You could certainly instead use the shortcut command F3. Now do you see this little gold X? This is the beginning of the path. This is where the loft started. Watch what happens when I grab the path spinner on the right and move that forward. See it kind of walking up that line? This is us now repositioning where we are along the path. I'm going to go all the way up to the other end. You could also simply have typed in the number 100 to achieve the same thing. So in essence, what I've done is I've now repositioned myself 100% down the path. I'm at the other end. Now, click again on the Get Shape button. And this time around, instead of clicking on the circle, let's instead click on the rectangle. Very good. Let's go back into a shaded mode here, F3. Oh boy, that's not exactly what I expected to see. Now there's one very important issue that you need to keep in mind at all times when lofting multiple shapes. Each shape you create is always going to have a first vertex, and the first vertices on each of those shapes need to directly line up. Now, all is not lost if this happens, and it will from time to time. There's actually a way that we can correct this problem. Let me now show you how. I want you to go to the sub-object of the loft. Click on Shape. Now, there's not a whole lot of commands in here, but one very important one is called Compare. Let's go ahead and click on this. Now, the dialog box that comes up, let's go ahead and move this kind of off maybe down to the lower side here. This dialog box is going to allow us to load the two shapes we have along the path, the circle and the rectangle, and then be able to compare where each shape's first vertex is located. Click on the icon in the upper left-hand corner. It's called Pick Shape. You're now in a mode to start picking either the circle or the rectangle. Let's go ahead and click on the circle first. Now the circle loads inside the dialog box, and I want you to notice there's a little square to the left-hand side of the circle. This represents the location of that circle's first vertex. Let's now go click on the rectangle. That's a little bit big, so we have a command down here, Zoom Extents, to be able to resize the window, and we'll do that. Now look at the position of the first vertex on the circle in relationship to the location of the first vertex on the rectangle. What we want to do is to more accurately line these up. You can do that by selecting the shape on the loft and actually rotating it. Now look, we're in the sub-object shape commands. So let's go ahead and select on the shape. Now that we've done that, we'll go to the rotate command. I'm going to go ahead and grab the blue ring on the gizmo. Now as I rotate this, I want you to look in the box. What we're doing is we're moving the position of that first vertex. Look also how that's affecting the mesh in our scene. So by simply lining those up, we've actually solved our problem. So if you ever get this twisted mesh by using multiple shapes along the same path, don't simply throw it into the trash can. Know that you can go to the sub-object level and then correct that problem by rotating those shapes as they travel down the path. Let's go ahead and close this up. Now, while we're still working on the circle shape, I can still control that, like scaling it down. I'll go to my Scale command and watch what happens as I do that. It completely changes the shape of the loft. Isn't that neat? So maybe we'll kind of keep that so it's quite a bit smaller. Now, there's nothing keeping me from using either the circle or the rectangle at a different level of the path. Let's in fact do that. We'll go back up to the top of the loft out of the sub-object. we'll go back under our path parameters, and let's go ahead and simply move halfway down the path, 50%. In this case, I'll simply type that in. Very good. I'm now going to go back to the Get Shape command. And I'm this time going to select the rectangle at the back end. Now what this has done is it's positioned the rectangle not just at the end of the path, but also at the middle of the path. And what this does is basically lock in the rectangular shape in between. Go ahead and get out of the Get Shape command. Why don't we go ahead now and show not just the shade, but the wireframe. We can do that by right-clicking on Perspective and changing this instead to Edged Faces. So you can see the actual geometry that we have in play. You could have also used the F4 command as the shortcut for Edged Faces. Now I want to add some additional geometry into this object. I can do so by opening up the Skin Parameters tab and now changing the path steps. So look what's happening here. We're actually adding additional segments in. Now the geometry does get kind of heavy, but in this case, it'll actually serve the purpose for what I'm trying to achieve. By the way, you also have shape steps. This will control not the number of segments as they travel down the path, but actually kind of as they go around the path. So you notice as I go up, you can increase those there. As I go down, well, it takes much of the circular shape kind of away. There we go. Let's go ahead now and hit F4 so we go back to shaded mode. Well, the fun just begins because what I'm now going to do is go back to the shape level. I'm going to select that rectangle that's at 50% down the path, and just like I scaled the circle beforehand, I'm now going to try to scale this. We'll go to my Scale command. Maybe I'll pull that down in Y. Look at what's happening here. Cancel. I'll go ahead and maybe pull back an X, and you can see what a difference that makes. I'm going to go both ways this time around. And look what's happened here. Now you also have some alignment commands for the shape that you're on. They're over in the command panel. We can align this to the left-hand side, the right, the top, the bottom, or go back to the default. We can actually move this around for ourselves. So I'll right-click to go to the Move command. Let's go ahead and say we're going to move this down in Y. And look at this. We can go from either an elephant's trunk to maybe a coat hanger. It's unbelievable how much flexibility those multiple shapes actually give you. So imagine the possibilities now that you can loft multiple shapes along a path. It really widens the opportunities as to what you can make. Now in our next video, we're going to start looking at what are referred to as loft deformations. Let's check that out.